So today we are looking at reviewing The Couple at Number 9 by Claire Douglas, a Sunday Times bestseller. And we are back to the kind of thriller genre.
Crime.
Yes, thriller, crime, mystery genre. And I read quite a few novels by Claire Douglas. She's a really good author, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. Very, very easy to read, compelling, very complex characters, complex plot, couple of different things going on at the same time.
There was a lot going on, wasn't there?
There was. And nothing really different from the norm, but very well written, that there weren't very many plot holes. But if I can start, says you, what's new? You always start, but just to get stuck in, what I want to talk about, because I really do think that aside from, we'll get into the plot and everything else, but one of the things that Claire Douglas did so well in this, and it's really unusual for an author to do it, I think, because it's so hard.
Yeah.
In terms of the narrative voice. So obviously she was going between two different narrative voice, but it was between first person with Safi and then the second person with Daphne / Rose / Jean
/ Sheila,
who were all in essence the same person. Yeah. But I find that really powerful, the second person narrative voice, because of Rose, Daphne, Jean, Sheila, whatever you want to go by. Although I think in this one, it was Rose up until the end, where she changed the name of the chapter to Daphne through the big reveal.
Yep.
Oh, we should have just said big spoiler alert, but obviously you have already read this if you are watching and reviewing with us.
And if you hadn't, it is your own fault.
And also, we still haven't given anything away. But
not really.
to get back to the narrative voice, so powerful, because Rose is suffering from Alzheimer's, and that was one of the really very powerful things that really resonated with me in terms of the narrative voice, her medical condition, and the relationship, the familial relationship between mother and daughter, mother and granddaughter, and that thing where they say, if you lose someone to Alzheimer's, you lose them twice.
Yeah.
And so the narrative voice where Rose was speaking directly to Lolly or to Lorna, her daughter, I found so powerful. And as the novel progressed and as the plot unraveled, it became even more powerful. Just those little moments of lucidity that were creeping through as she was looking back. Did that?
Well, I thought that the dementia, the Alzheimer's, was very well written. It didn't feel like I find some authors, whenever they go down that route, they nearly turn the old person, revert them back into this childish sort of thing. But Claire Douglas didn't really do this. We could still see that this was a grown woman, unfortunately suffering from Alzheimer's, but we did feel sorry for her. But at the same time, I don't know how to describe it. She was still...
it wasn't that she had, as you say, you used the word regress there. She hadn't regressed to that childlike state.
Yes.
She was focusing in
but
on
even,
the action of the text.
But even later on, once we find out there's that big reveal and we get that Daphne chapter, she says even she played on her Alzheimer's. She was of course there were moments that I led them to believe that I forgot something, but that was all for her own gain, so it really is this, she's still this cunning woman, who still has these, despite the Alzheimer's, still has
but
these...
Alzheimer's doesn't change.
No, absolutely
it doesn't
not.
diminish your character, your virtue, or your vice, or whatever.
She was able to use that
to
memory
her own
loss.
advantage. Yes,
absolutely.
The fact that she knew that she had,
and she even knew, towards the end with it, she was like, I don't know when or how I'm going to give this information over. So I would rather do it now on my own terms, you know, and I think that was the most lucid that we have ever seen her, you know.
Absolutely. And I do agree with you there that that in terms of the Alzheimer's aspect and the narrative voice, you were actually getting her.
Yeah.
You know, she was an adult. Yes, she was vulnerable, but she was, you know, confessing and revealing and leading us along. She was pivotal in driving the plot. Really
absolutely.
forward, which, you know, isn't typical. In, as you have mentioned before, other texts where you have somebody who's suffering from Alzheimer's, because maybe other authors tend to focus in on the vulnerability of them, but of the character or the person who's suffering there. You could also see the trauma and the difficulty that families have in dealing with that. And I thought that Claire Douglas dealt with it very powerfully
and sensitively,
but also in a very real way, you know, in a very, very real way, which is very hard to do. And I thought that she used her narrative voice to do that. And it really did stand out for me.
Yeah.
And it was a nice contrast between, because I got quite a shock, you know, when she started addressing Lorna, you know, as if she was having this conversation with her. And when you got to know Lorna, the daughter, when she came into it, the fact that when she was brought back into this little town again, where little cottage was, Nine Skelton Place, her childhood trauma was obviously buried so deep that she didn't know why she was having a negative reaction to things. And I think that...
I feel like in this text, you know, like memory plays
a huge...
yeah, because we've got obviously the Alzheimer's element, but then we've got Lorna who suffers with memory loss due to her trauma. Like she has patches of it, and obviously towards the end, you know, when the truth's revealed and all, she's working through it with her therapist and understanding. And you know, but
there in the epilogue at the end, it's just when you say that, when she's working through her trauma, that the Daphne, Rose, Sheila, Jean, whoever you want to call her, you know, in terms of these various guises that she had, Lorna doesn't have the same closure that this character did. Like, she was able to, you know, unload and unburden herself, and she died peacefully, but they are left living the legacy of
picking
that,
up the
and
pieces of it all.
Lorna's resentment and her anger,
but I think
at not being able to think about how she grieved for her real mother, how she,
but
you know, when she stopped calling for her, and when she started to call
Daphne,
Rose,
Rose,
or Daphne,
Sheila, Jean,
mum.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is as well, like, I think the other thing that she did so beautifully and so powerfully was that conflicting emotion within Lorna, and even within Safi as well, because this person that ultimately they both grew up with them, you know, and I know Lorna maybe didn't, like, she always thought of herself as quite alien to her mother, you know, she was the opposite.
It's actually quite because we've read at this stage a number of texts which explores the relationship between parents and child, mother, daughter, you know, that kind of familial dynamic. But it actually, the fact that Lorna really felt quite displaced, and the generational trauma and damage, because you have 3 generations there, and then Safi obviously is pregnant, so there's going to be a 4th generation, and it's that legacy of trauma that's kind of visited and revisited down the ages, especially down the female line here, which I found very powerful. You know, the knock-on effect, because even at the end of the text, when everything has been found out, and we haven't even really touched on the plot, and there was a lot in it. But at the end of the text, when they find out the truth about Rose, Daphne, when they find out the truth about what has happened, who the bodies belong to in the back of this little cottage, Safi is able to, because of that really close bond that she has had with her grandmother, as she thought, she's able to forgive her, even though she now knows the truth. Safi's mother, Lorna, who is...
I feel like for her it's a much more complicated
Absolutely.
issue.
And I do think that she played that dynamic really, really well.
It was believable because, like, I was trying to put myself
even
in
Lorna's anger and
Yeah.
Safi's compassion and because it was so much, it was a much bigger, I think, in terms of betrayal, a much bigger betrayal for Lorna.
Absolutely. Like she's
still trying to grapple on that, and even to explain why she didn't, on some subconscious level, she never felt that connection with her mother. And it's only at the end that it all becomes...
I know. And you know, for me, I started putting those pieces together. I was like, because we had sort of talked about it, you know, saying, you know, I think that Daphne took Rose, and this was before we even found out about the first body.
Absolutely.
You know, and I was like, I think Daphne stole Rose's identity. And even it was that bit in the text where, is it Melissa, the cafe owner, she says to Lorna, your mother, she was so flighty, and Lorna's going, no, that doesn't sound like my mother. But I think that was so well done because
the clues were so subtle.
Yes, but even like, so Lorna, who herself is quite flighty, and just like her mother, as soon as any sort of issue arises, the first instinct is, I have to go, you know. And for me, it was nice, you know, because for a character who has felt like such an outsider in her own family, you know, even with her own daughter, you know, because again, she didn't feel like she had as much in common with her as her daughter had with her granny. You know, for her to finally, tragically, find her place and realize, you know, well, that wasn't my mother. And I don't know.
I don't know if I would have been as together at the end of the novel as, you know, even that epilogue, and it was lovely. I know when you finished it, you were saying, you know, that it was very heartwarming.
It was all my love, Mummy, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna cry.
But you know, that was her reading the letter. That was a lovely touch.
That was
it was. But I just don't think that. And again, do you remember we were talking about Tress of the Emerald Sea last week, and we had said, you know, that one of the things that you do is you bring your own kind of personality, your own experience, your own baggage, your own life experience with you to a text. And you couldn't with that one. But you're obviously, as a mother, as a daughter, as, you know...
Oh, yeah, you're bringing...
An adult. I'm thinking... Would I be as together if I had come through what she has and come through the trauma of finding out that the woman that I thought was my mother wasn't my mother, that the woman that I thought was my mother, spoiler alert, had actually murdered my mother and buried her in the back garden, taken me as her own daughter, kept me in secrecy. And also, you know, assumed her identity, lived a complete lie. And that was at odds with the history of this woman. So, you know, she was such a psychopath. There was something really...
Look, I think Daphne's character was probably the most complicated and complex character I've ever read, only because... from the first moment that we meet her, you're kind of like, oh, this poor girl, something.
I didn't feel that.
Did you not?
No, I didn't. And I'll tell you why. And this is where you and I are different.
Right.
Because I think that fundamentally I must be a very suspicious person. I don't trust easily.
Oh, well, it's a thriller.
No, but I mean, but even in that, and I think I said this to you during the week, I thought the minute that I twigged that that you're reading the description where she's in the town square. Obviously, she's acting a little bit furtively, a little strangely. On what planet, and this is me speaking as a mummy and having done my best to protect you and your sister as you were growing up and to provide for you. And I get that times were hard. So I'm trying to think, if I was in a situation where I needed to make ends meet, and we've had that to do over the years. So it wasn't a case that, life was easy for us in any stretch. It wasn't hard or anything, but I'm just trying to make sure like she didn't suffer. She had a very good childhood. Christina, you are so mean. She looks like she needs help sitting here with me at the minute. Your daddy's going to have so much fun with that. You do. That's going to be, a segment. And you deserve it. And I'm going to tell him to double down on that. You deserve it. So, no, she didn't have a hard life. Trust me. On what planet, no matter how difficult it is, would you bring a complete stranger into a house to live with you that you don't know?
Yeah.
Wouldn't happen.
I agree with you.
A mission.
Yeah.
And so for that, that was my first, and I did do that. I suspended my issues and reality, and I bought into it for the sake of the text.
But I also think now, again, I agree with you and I also think we live in a day and age now. I'm a young thing. I didn't live in the 80s, okay?
Excuse me, the 80s, I'll tell you, the 70s was a great era. The 80s was phenomenal. And I will not have a little upstart like you telling me that I'm past it or that I don't know what it is anymore.
I'm just saying that I'm a young thing, okay? That's a thing with an A.
See, when you have to explain that, you're not a young thing.
I am. But
in your head, maybe, Christina.
I feel like in today's day and age, there's that much we're aware of, and I'm not trying to say you weren't aware in the 80s. That's not what I'm saying. But there's that much we're aware of. There's a lot more.
Are you actually going to try and teach your granny to suck eggs now? No, is that it?
No.
Be very, just tread carefully. I'm just saying, tread carefully.
But there's so many more dangers that are out there now that I feel like maybe for the 80s, it was I want to say a more trusting time. But it all okay. Keep doing that face. That's okay. But I think it also shows
this is the person that did not exist in the 80s.
I'm trying to explain.
Okay, you're
I
not
think
doing
it
a good
also
job.
Shows Rose's vulnerability, because I know for me, like, take me going to uni for example.
I don't want to hear stories.
No, I'm trying to say whenever we were trying to get a flat. We only had 3 people, so we had to take in a virtual stranger, and
that's a different situation.
No, but I'm saying, my big criteria was, well, it has to be a girl because I wouldn't feel safe with a strange boy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe, and I know she had a child. It was a bit different for me, but I don't know. I feel like it demonstrates her vulnerability and her
absolutely
need, for money and stuff when she has a small child and she is unable to work because obviously there's nobody else in the house there to help her make ends meet.
And that's why I suspended.
I'm so glad.
My reality. What you were alluding to there is a generalization that, you feel safer with another girl, but that.
No, that's not necessarily
true. I
true.
get that, but that's what I'm saying there. That also that, and I would. So I'm in agreement with you, but the issue is, again, girls do bad things too.
Absolutely, people are terrible.
Yes, the second thing is there that slightly different scenario. I know that what you're getting at, where you're comparing with the uni house and that vulnerability, but where you have a child involved.
Yes.
That's that for me. And again, I'm just bringing my own personalities, and I get again. This is not a spoiler alert. And by this stage, if you have been watching the discussions
and you've kept listening without reading it's your own fault.
You're getting to know our personalities and our characters. You'll know that we're very different. And We are.
Oh, I know, Mama.
We are. And that's okay. But I just, it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't have happened.
It wouldn't happen with me either.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
yes.
I could understand a girl with no family.
Yes, I
no
can
friends,
understand that.
No job.
Like, I'm speaking from
kind of a privileged position. That I'm not saying that.
No. But I'm speaking because I've never been in that situation, and until you walk down that, in that, in somebody else's shoes, you have no idea what it's like for them. However, I can say hand on heart that it is. I'm still 100%. I'm not going to. That I wouldn't have done that simply because there was too much at stake there. Okay, so that was it.
Also, you couldn't do background checks back then, so doubly scary.
Well,
you probably
could wouldn't have done her any good to do a background check on her because she was she had different identities. But that kind of leads me into the next thing that I really wanted to talk about. So we've talked about the narrative voice. We've kind of talked a wee bit about the plot there, the family relationships. But I want to ask you a question. And I did ask you this during the week, but you hadn't quite finished the book yet. So I said I wasn't going to give you...
spoilers?
I wasn't going to spoil it for you, but just to be thinking about it. Do you think that given the narrative voice, given the kind of leap that we have to take there and what we've just talked about in terms of suspending reality to actually allow the plot to unfurl with this girl being taken in as a lodger, unknown, unchecked, all of those things. Do you think, knowing about the plot in its entirety, that there was nearly too much going on in it? Because I do think that there was... they were the most unfortunate people in the world ever, hands down.
My thing was, okay, so there was a lot going on, and it was I did, after I finished the book, I kind of reflected on that. So you had the Daphne / Rose narrative, you had Theo and Jen, you had Safi and Tom, who were also kind of driving the Daphne Rose story. But then you also had another bad guy. Victor Carmichael sounds like a
villain. He sounds like a villain, which he was. And I just think there was a lot going on there in terms of the parentage and the Rose and the murders and the dynamic and the stealing of the identities. And then when you factored in the Victor plot line and its connection to Lorna and Rose.
I feel like there was so much. Look, I think it was necessary because in order to make, the reader go, because there was two potential suspects and and for me it has to be Victor, because sure, Victor was asking about her in the town and then you found out no, he wasn't. That was Daphne manipulating her emotions because she was insecure. Would that be it? She was insecure.
She was a psychopath.
She felt, but even her justification,
insecurity doesn't come into it.
She was completely insecure in and of herself as well, that she can still be a psychopath and because she could never trust that someone that she loved would stay. Yeah, I feel like so the Victor storyline was necessary in that.
Yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't necessary,
but
was there too?
There was too much, because I don't think it wrapped up.
It didn't
the way I wanted it to.
It's not even the way that you wanted it to. There was because it was so complex.
It kind of seemed anticlimactic. Like the police just came,
arrested him.
He was tried.
It was but it was so explosive that it nearly eclipsed the Rose, Daphne.
The whole time I was going, how does Victor fit into this?
The whole narrative had been, and I'm like, okay, that would have been, I think, a story on its own without being kind of
put in there,
hooked into to this.
I think it helped with Rose's fear, but I feel like if Victor had been killed off, that would have been a more.
But why you kill him? Why would Victor have been killed off?
Like if he was killed, you know, that she lived in fear of this man, and the whole time he turned out to be dead or something.
So I'm just saying that I think that what she did with Victor, in terms of his crime, the fact that he was another psychopath, he was
the same on the same league as Daphne, really. Yes, in that he was obsessive, controlling,
exploitative, manipulative, and he did that personally and professionally. Yeah. And I think what she did there was that she did show that it's not, because there could have been a criticism there. Well, it's people who thing. Not even a gender thing. I was going to take it beyond that, Christina, like a social thing. You know, that because Jean Daphne came from a very underprivileged background.
Yeah, it just showed anybody was capable,
right across the spectrum of humanity, right across the class system, the haves, the have-nots, that people are people, and that you get some very good people and you get some very bad people, and I think in all walks of life. So I think that's what she showed there very well. But I do think with Victor, that his storyline was so shocking. And I think she did that deliberately to move away from, you know, that, okay, so tired trope that Rose was in a relationship, a coercive, manipulative relationship, and she had to run away from him, and he was the villain who was chasing her down, and, you know, all of that. So she went completely in a more sinister, if there is anything more sinister than that. And I don't mean that to take away from the, you know, a situation like I've just described, but the fact that he was a doctor, that he was an IVF doctor, that he was using his own sperm to inseminate, impregnate these women, that he was sexually abusing them. That he had pictures of them.
And his whole story, it made me feel so icky, or do you know what I mean? Like
the fact that we knew, well, I knew, and I hope you knew, I hope you were able to figure out that he had murdered his wife.
Oh, I'm not stupid.
Well,
I know it takes a while, but I'm proud to say the penny dropped for me before I finished the book. So, do you know what? They did have 2 first persons in this. And I don't think it was overdone. So you had Safi's in the first person, and you had Daphne's 2 chapters in the first person.
At the end.
Yeah.
But that was because that worked so well, because she was going between throughout the first person. For Safi's voice was totally different from Rose's voice. And then she had to go to the first person for Daphne at the end when she when the plot had been revealed.
Yeah.
So it fitted in. It was so, you know, it was thought out. It was planned, I think.
It was. And then even just... like,
it worked.
It did, but Daphne's voice, it sounded so much different to Rose as well. And you were like, do you know, I don't know. It worked.
I thought it was phenomenal. I really did. Because even the structure of the text tied in with the narrative voice, tied in with the plot, and it all worked out. The only criticism, if I could say that, and it is like it's not a make or break criticism, it didn't detract from my enjoyment of the text, was that I just thought that Victor storyline would have been a great sequel to this. It would have. It was a standalone text in and of itself. You know, I think.
But I thought even, do you know the way Daphne was flirting with that boy Sean, and Rose was panicking in case that was Victor, and then she seen who she thought was Victor out the window, and she realized. I thought that was a bit of a cop out. You know,
I actually think as well, and I want to ask this because maybe I'm guilty of not reading it properly, but is that a plot hole in the text? where she, so am I right in what I'm about to say? Now,
Right.
I listened to the fact that I asked, am I right? Because Christina would give you the impression that I think I'm right all the time. No, I don't.
Okay.
See? So, am I right in saying...
Am I right? It's a leading question.
Right? It's a leading question. I want the answer to be yes, you are right, but I'm ready to accept no, I'm not.
Okay.
So am I right in saying that when she got back, so as we're coming to the climax and the revelation at the end, that when they got back after the bonfire and all the rest, and she had put Lolly to bed, the real Rose had put Lolly to bed, and she was past herself thinking that Victor had found them.
Yeah.
She had looked out the window, she had seen the image as we thought that was Victor.
Yeah.
And then we weren't told what she revealed in the letter at that point. Okay, so remember that.
Yeah.
And then Daphne came back. She was frantic with the knife in the kitchen. Rose, yes.
Yeah.
And they were having the argument, and Daphne knew at that point what had happened. She had said or Rose knew at that point that what had happened. She had said to Daphne, she had revealed that she knew Daphne had been manipulating her for quite some time with Joel, with this situation. But in the letter, we weren't told, or she said that she had realised that it wasn't Victor, that it was Sean, that Daphne had set all
how
that
did
up.
she have time to write all this?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's what I actually thought.
So is that, am I right in saying that that's potentially something that...
Well, it's something that's not plausible, because I couldn't imagine
in terms of the
my
timeline.
diary for my daughter,
And when did that letter get put with the rest of the stuff behind the fireplace?
Well, yeah, because whenever Daphne came to the house, she was in the kitchen already distraught with the knife, thinking that she had saw Victor. Did she put the knife down and go, hold on a minute, I need to write my diary?
What was she... That's what so that reaction and persona didn't play true with what she had written.
It nearly would have been better for the letter to end abruptly, because it shows that's what happened. Life happened. Her life ended abruptly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think that probably what Claire Douglas wanted to do
wanted
was
everything
she wanted that heartfelt reaction that after such mind-blowing trauma and
I think it was good
fantastical that there was that closure, that there was that kind of resolution and that voice from beyond the veil, for want of a better expression. But and it's only like when I read it, I was hooked and I loved it. It's only, when you start to think about it afterwards,
the logistics of it all. Yeah.
Now that the dust has settled, how did that? Why was she down in the kitchen with the knife when she had already twigged that it wasn't Victor? What was the purpose of the knife?
Maybe at that point she was fearful of Daphne, because
again, so this is the same person. Okay, now mind this. This is the same person who has already escaped the maniacal, coercive, controlling, abusive Victor, who had the insight to kind of make him trust her so that she could escape, who had the insight as well as making him trust to go around and to look for evidence to use as leverage and to take that with her. The insight to phone the taxi and to tell the taxi to wait down the road and run. Same person, same circumstance. This time, I would argue that if you have a sleeping child upstairs, you're going to be even more tuned in and even more aware of what to do. So she had already figured that out. So I'm just saying that in terms of the character arc and development, that didn't really... that explanation doesn't work for me.
So whenever I read it, so again, I agree with everything that you said. And I feel like that situation with Victor, because she was afraid, she had to be very sneaky about getting out, but and she had, she had her savings, she had her money and stuff. I feel like maybe for her character development at this point, once she realized Daphne was trying to manipulate her emotions, and I think she realized herself, I've gone off the deep end here, this is too much. I feel like perhaps in her character, she was feeling stronger, maybe, in that she felt brave that she could say to Daphne, yes, you need to leave.
Why is she standing there hysterical with a knife? Same question. So what you've just said there still... No.
But it could have been...
On the flip side...
She could have thought that she had Daphne subdued enough that she could put the knife down and say, go. And she... Maybe naivety, she was like, she's not going to hurt me. She said that she loved me.
But this is the same person who has...
I know this.
No, but this is the same person who has worked out that... Daphne has manipulated her with Joel, that Daphne has created the situation to play on her fear that Victor's chasing them to go. We're told all of this.
Yeah.
And also that I think at this point that she has realized that Daphne manipulated her emotionally and her passion and her fear in that moment to do something to Neil, the journalist, the other body that was found. So you have all of these things that have happened that I think that just those, and it's only at the end of the text.
What would you have done?
Well, I don't know.
See, I think that...
What in terms of writing it? Or
No, I mean, reaction? If you were Rose, what would you have done in that situation?
I would have played a much smarter game.
Right.
I would have been...
See, my thinking is, we are flawed people. Sometimes we...
Did I not tell you I was the Mary Poppins of parents last week? Practically perfect.
But sometimes we do what we think is the right thing and it turns out to be a mistake. And I feel like if we were able to get... it wouldn't be realistic, but Rose's voice from beyond the grave talking about her regrets, I feel like that would have been maybe her biggest regret, was saying that to Daphne, knowing how erratic because she did have all the information at that point. She had read the articles. She knew not to take her word for it. I feel like, again, human instinct, it'll never happen to me. No, it's true. Those things, those bad things, those crimes happen to other people. Nobody that says that they love me would... I get
what you've just said there. Completely agree. However, that argument doesn't fit for Rose, because it would never happen to me. Okay, hold on. That I go for IVF, I find out that the doctor has impregnated me with his own sperm. Right? Find that out. Then I find out that he invites me to live with him, and then he has developed romantic feelings for me. He begins to control me. He locks me in a room. So he essentially has kidnapped me. I find that out and I have to run away. Then I find out that he has done this. He has a catalogue of women that he has abused. I find this information and I take it with me just as security, just as leverage in case he chases me down. So that would never happen to me. Thankfully, that has never happened to me. So that has never happened to me. So what do you do? It's a good argument. It's a good text, but it just she had to, if you're going to get that
it was
resolution,
too quickly wrapped up.
Yes, it's going to be that. So next week, we are going back to one of Christina's favourite authors. I think you are a big fan of Taylor Jenkins Reid.
I am indeed.
And we are going to be looking at the After I Do, because after all of the slagging that you gave me about narrative voice, Christina's reason for choosing this text is because she likes the style of narrative voice that this author writes.
I didn't say I disliked narrative
So you've given me an awful lot of aggro for that. So how dare you? So,
You'll see what I mean. You'll see what I mean.
So I've started to read it. And again, I think next week will be, there'll be a lot of robust discussions.
An interesting debate.
Yes, an interesting debate. So that will be another explosive episode. So we hope you join us, and we hope you've enjoyed tonight. So cheers.